and have a seat. So let me just say that, we wanted to do something different on Mother's Day. Pastor Guy had asked me to preach a message, but, children are dismissed. Sorry, how could I forget that? Oh my goodness sakes. Our kids are dismissed, and I know Jocelyn has some really fun things planned today. I began to pray, and I thought, there's some pretty powerful stories here in our own church with our own people, and I began to pray just about who God would have share today. Some people have been here forever, and some people are pretty new, and so I just, I'd love them to come up, introduce themselves, and share their stories today. Now, let me just say that this is a really great mix of some seriously raw and real stories. Let's face it that Mother's Day is not always a happy day for some people. So that's something to consider today. Father's Day is not always a happy day for some people. Holidays, if you know the statistics, are sometimes the biggest, most depressing times of people's lives, is what statistics say. But we have joy in the Lord and the things that he can do. Amen. And kudos to the sons out there that are in the congregation today, because you're here with your mom. My son came to visit and he left yesterday, and it was just such a wonderful time. Where's Jesse? There you are. You're not getting out of this, Jesse. I'm just teasing. They're up here we decided we were all going to stay up here together, moral support for each other, right? And also, I would like to say to you guys up here, you can use the handheld microphone or you can use that microphone, whatever one you're more comfortable with. Everybody breathe. I know everybody's nervous up here, but you know what? I truly believe with all my heart that these stories that they're going to share today are going to touch your life. And each one is just coming from a totally different perspective. And I just feel that God is going to do something special in this place. I'm asking you guys just to be open in your hearts. No matter how Mother's Day hits you today, I'm asking that you let God impart something into your heart and your life, and do something special in you. So we're going to start off with Tim Mishkett. And Tim has been here forever, since the creation of time. And anyways, Tim has some very special thoughts this morning. Do you want this or that?
So I can see you now, but I can't now because I won't be able to see my notes.
Take your time, Tim.
So this is not really my comfort zone. My comfort zone is in the woods, but today we're here to honor mothers, and I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all those that are here. So I want to tell you about my mom, Thelma May Mishkett. She had a lot to do with who I am, I guess. She taught me everything I know. Well, I guess she did. But I'm here to talk about my mom, but my dad also was a very big part of my life. And my mom was a Christian as long as I can remember. She raised us in a Christian home, and she was the spiritual leader, especially when I was younger. She made a point to get us to church every Sunday. And we also went to Sunday school. I went to church, kindergarten, vacation Bible school, Christian Service Brigade, which is like Boy Scouts in the Christian form, and all the special events that we had at church. She also taught me to be respectful to people. She told all of us, my siblings and I, that if you have nothing nice to say, say nothing at all. She instilled in me to be helpful to the elderly. She actually was a great aunt who raised my mother, because my mother's mother died when she was young, and her father was an alcoholic. So my mother went to live with my aunt, and she was my grandmother, and she was about 5 foot tall, and I think when she died, she was less than 80 pounds. She was a very tiny thing and very frail, and she fell a couple times and broke her hip. And so my mother always taught me to give my aunt a hand or give her an arm to help her up and down the stairs. And that wasn't really comfortable for me, but it was very helpful as far as me understanding that we needed to be helpful to the elderly. During summer vacations, I would go and stay with my grandmother and help her around the house, which was good memories, but also another good lesson that my mother instilled on me. My mom also was a leader, a great leader, and she led by example. She taught Sunday school. She taught Christian Girl Scouts. It's called Pioneer Girls. That was part of the Christian Missionary Alliance. She sang solos. She sang in the choir. She worked in church dinners like Shirley. Reminds me a lot of my mom. She served as a deaconess, and she was always had people over at holidays, people that were going to be alone, so that they could be with family and friends and enjoy the holiday. My mom also cared for my grandparents and others, especially when they were ill or needed help, cooked meals, brought them to hospital visits, doctor's visits. And she also cared for her dad when he was going through his alcoholism and died of it. But I remember when I was a real small kid, I just barely remember certain things that he stayed in our house, and I just had little glimpses of that. But as hard as I'm sure it was for my mom to take care of him, she did. Some people thought of my mom as a saint. That sounds kind of cliche, I guess, but my sister-in-law, or future sister-in-law at this time, my brother's wife, she was a teenager, and they went to a prom or something and came home, in the morning after a night out, and they went into it was my sister Melody and her sister, and they came home and there was nobody there. The lights were on, the doors were open, the cars were in the yard, and everybody was gone. And they were very nervous because they thought the rapture had come and they had missed it. So my sister-in-law said, well, let's call and see if Thalma's home, and if she's home, we know we're okay. That was a good story. Anyways, all this being said is to how I could not care for my mom when she was in her last years. And I think that my mom was smart in the way that she taught us, because she taught us to care for her also. in the last years. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Tim. That was awesome. Appreciate it so much. At this time, I'm going to call up my Vermonty mom, little Bonnie. Little Bonnie, come on up, little Bonnie. And Joe's going to come up here to be with Bonnie as she shares. Wow, we can't use this for you. We'd have to bring it way down. Way down. So Bonnie and Joe are up here. Bonnie is going to share a totally different perspective than our other speakers this morning, as she's coming from sharing about being the mom, talking about a child and grief. And I know that Bonnie, when I first came here, I remember you saying to me that you avoided Mom's Day, but today she's here to be a blessing on Mom's Day, and that's a huge, huge step up, and I'm really proud of her this morning. I want you to take your time and breathe, and don't rush. And don't pass out. That's right. We might have to lower this. Wow. Okay, just a little bit.
I'm going to reiterate what he said. This is not my comfort zone. But it started out just like any other day, September 5th, 2010. My daughter and her family were going to an amusement park in Lake George. I was supposed to go, but we were caregiving for my parents, and I had no one to take my place, so I stayed home. They stopped at our house before they left, and I told her how much I loved her and I wanted to hug her, but she said, "Mom, I'm going to be right back." So I said, "Okay, you guys are running late. You can just go." I gave her a quick kiss, and off they went. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a phone call from my son-in-law. He said, "You need to come over here. Marlita collapsed on a ride." So her father and I headed over. They took us into a family room. Didn't really say anything to us. The nurse wouldn't really tell us anything. She said that her husband would be back in a few minutes. He was off changing the baby. When he finally came in the room, which seemed like an eternity, I asked him if she was conscious, could we talk to her, and he told us that she was already gone. Words that I never expected to hear. I knew something happened, but I certainly didn't think for a minute that she would be gone. I'm going to tell you, when I went in there and I saw her, I begged God, please God, this would be such a testimony to your power. If you could just let her come back. I used every bargain that I could possibly think of. But it didn't happen. The first emotion that I felt was anger, because if God really loved me, why would he take my only child from me? What had I done so wrong? The journey to navigate the loss of a child is not an easy one. You get waves of emotion. At times, it feels like it was just yesterday, and then at times it feels like it was 100 years ago. It's been 13 years that she's been gone, and that there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss her. I knew that I was going to need some counseling, and I'm not going to lie, it took a while. But eventually I was able to move from being angry at God to thanking God that I had had her for as long as I did, realizing that we're all God's children and he can take us home anytime he wants. I must have done something very good. I came to the realization I must have done something really good. Why he blessed me with her. For 39 years she was alive. I don't know how I would have survived this without the Lord right beside me in every stage of this journey called grief. I loved being a mom, and I'm so glad that I had a chance to do that. However, that wasn't the end of the story. I set about the task of raising my grandson. Helping with that certainly helped me to take my mind off the tremendous loss that I'd had. Now, I want to explain, before I go on, that I never wanted my son-in-law to be alone in life. Life is very hard, and he had an autistic son. But as you can imagine, someone coming in and taking over the things that I'd been doing and slowly limiting the time that I got to spend with them, resentment started to build. Unfortunately, there was a lot of miscommunications. One day when she came, because he met someone, one day when she came to pick up my grandson, I'm embarrassed to say that emotions took over and I really let her have it. And I said a lot of hurtful things. I really jumped into her, but I apologized immediately, but unfortunately she didn't accept my apology. That was the beginning of several years of not seeing my grandson, except for very limited times, possibly on weekends, meeting at a park or walking through the mall and him following us. It was extremely hard, but I knew that some way over time I was going to apologize again. That the day came that I was in Costco's and my son-in-law and her were standing in the line right next to us. And he had asked this gal to marry him, actually on Marlita's birthday. And I looked at the engagement ring and I said how beautiful it was, and we made uncomfortable conversation. Then I decided that I was kind of uncomfortable, so I went over and sat in the food court on a bench. As I sat there, they started to come towards me, and I don't know what happened. It felt like someone pushed me off that bench. And pretty soon I was face to face with her, and I was very emotional. I was crying, shaking, not in a good place. And I wanted to tell her how sorry I was for what I had said. And I apologized for all the hurtful things and everything, and she said, "Thank you, I really appreciate that." And so they left. Within a few days, I got a text message from her, and she said, "I think we need to talk." And I said, "Okay." I was so nervous. So I met her someplace and we talked for a long time. And at the end of the conversation, I gave her a hug and I said, "I could have loved you." And she said, "There's still time." Well, from that day forward, we started to build a relationship, and now she considers me her best friend. And I get my grandson every summer and on holidays. And she calls me several times a day. If she drives, she calls me. And so God gave me back. I was able to find a way back. Praise God, I got my family back. I wish that it could have been Marlita, but God provided someone that was going to know how to do the best she could do to possibly raise him right. God had a plan.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for the moral support, Joe. God is good. That was awesome. Boy, it sounds like when you got feisty, you turned into an Italian.
It was kind of mean.
You kind of. Okay, so now we have Jesse. Do you want the handheld or this?
I'll try the hand.
Okay. And now we have Jesse. So Jesse's our youngest, and Jesse is single. Come on over here, Jesse. All the single ladies. All the single ladies. I'm just teasing. Jesse has an awesome story, and the cool thing about Jesse is his mom's in the house. So that's very cool. And we're happy about that today. I hope somebody's taking pictures because this is really awesome up here, okay? Thank you, Jesse.
I'll give it my best shot. I want to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom, of course. Let's see, where to start. My mom was there for me. But I think I told you all the story about how I loved to climb trees and try to plug the front door to a bee nest, not realizing they had a back one. Mom was there to help me heal up that eye, and a couple days later, I had to go up and try it again. And it seems like it was probably just a few days after that I fell out of my first tree. Seemed like it was 40 feet high. It was probably only 6 feet off the ground, but Mom was there for me then. Dirt bike accidents and various trips to the hospital to take care of my leg and get me mended up. Mom was there, of course. Pretty much every time I got in trouble in high school, Mom was there. Of course, she worked just across the ball field at the other school, so she was usually there pretty quick. Yeah, I didn't seem like I didn't get away with much, that's for sure. I'd get a speeding ticket up in Burlington before I even got home. My parents already knew. Yeah, my mom, she's been with me through a lot. We've had a lot of tough times as far as the things that I've put her through the years, my alcoholism and the car accidents, and I'm sure she had a lot of sleepless nights. I hope I don't get to experience those, but we'll see. I'm sure Mom will be there for me again for that too.
That's right.
Yeah, I know without my mom, I probably wouldn't have been led to God as quick as I had. But through God's plan and His circumstances, brought me my daughter when she was 5. And we've got to have a wonderful life so far together. And my mom's been there for me all through that as well. She's always tried to encourage me through the tough times. And my mom, I've also told the story where my mom brought me here to this church. I don't know, it was probably 15 years ago now. And of course, after a night of drinking, and probably had a few that morning, but sitting here with my head bobbing, I never realized I would be back in this church one day, and so fulfilled and so happy. I still go through my trying times, and Mom's always picking up the phone, usually to listen to me banter for a few minutes, and then I try to quickly apologize. Say, I don't mean to always call you and be negative. And I don't always. Sometimes I call her when I'm happy. But seems like whenever I'm disgruntled, it's like she's one of the first calls. I'm trying to break that cycle. But yeah, Mom brought me to another church down the road where Pastor Charlie grabbed my ear. And I'll never forget that either. I've met a lot of great people in my life so far, and without my mom and my trying times, I wouldn't have 4 beautiful children that I have. I want to say they came from some not so great circumstances, but without those not so great circumstances, I wouldn't have them. And they are my world. I hope I can be half the person my mom is.
Thank you, Jim. You did a great job. Thank you for moms who unconditionally love. Amen? Amen. That's the kind of love Jesus has, if you're in this place and don't know it this morning. And the last testimony we have today, this is Aaron Heffernan. Did I say the last name right? Aaron is our newbie. Aaron, why don't you come up here? And, you know, Aaron shared part of her story with me, and it really, wow, it's powerful. I want you to take your time. You got plenty of time. And I really hope it touches your heart this morning.
I promise I haven't written a book, only half a book.
That's okay. Take your time. We got plenty of time.
I was born September 17th, 1965, in Middlebury, Vermont, to my beautiful mom, Isabel, and my father, Richard. I had 2 older brothers. My mom happened to be one of those people that we call fertile myrtle. Within a year after I was born, my sister April would be born. So 4 kids in 4 years. When I was asked to write something that I learned from my mother, I thought it would be a breeze because there was so much I learned from my mother, good, bad, and indifferent. But I found that it dove into a deep place in my heart that held a ton of deep feelings. I love you, Mom. When I was 7, Mom took some sort of an overdose. I remember that my oldest brother, Chase, would have to hold the car door to keep her from jumping out of the car while my father drove her to the hospital. That was extremely scary. I can vividly see that day like it was yesterday, and I'm 57 now. So much lost and mixed emotion. This was the beginning of years of hospital visits, counseling, divorce, separation from my mom, and questions. What happened? Somewhere in the next 3 to 4 years, they diagnosed Mom with paranoid schizophrenia, and our new life began. My mom was a beautiful soul. She was brunette, around 155 pounds when she first became sick. Just completely beautiful. I had many people that were in and out of my mom and dad's life early on that would let me know just how special she was. I thank those people for having shared pieces of Mom that I just could not remember, the pieces that connected her to life before illness. She spent years before my parents married helping to take care of her younger siblings. She was 11 or 12 years older than them. My aunt always spoke of Mom as her hero. I love you, Mom. When she and Dad first married, my mom was a true partner to my dad. She would help milk, drive tractors, and do whatever in the fields, cook, clean, and have us children. She also held a job at Cartmar Sales and Service in Middlebury for a stretch of time. She was my hero. When Mom and Dad finally divorced, we were asked who we would like to live with. Wasn't that fun? Not in the least. Who in their right mind would want their parents separate from one another and then must make a choice on where to go? We all decided to live with my dad. We just didn't know what my mom would be like, and that was scary. Over the next few years, us girls would be the ones that would visit Mom. The boys stayed mostly on the farm with Dad. We all lived there, but we would go on weekends with Mom and just spend time doing whatever. It was scary at times. We would go on vacation with my mom at different times. That was also pretty scary. She wouldn't hurt us. It was just unsettling. She would talk about things that were scary. I share a bit of this so you would understand that it truly changed who we were as young ladies. My sister and I were affected very differently by this experience. When my sister and I were little, we were woken up in the middle of the night and taken to the Shoreham Telephone Company and told that we were waiting for somebody to come get us. Aliens, I believe, are what my mother was talking about. I still don't remember if anyone else knew she had taken us out of the house. Over the next few years, there were several adventures that would happen with Mom. Mom was a pretty free spirit. We would go visit our aunt in Benson, and Mom would let us smoke. Fun then, but so thankful that neither of us would ever take on smoking permanently. Yay for that. There was a time that my mom made me a birthday cake. You're allowed to laugh, it won't offend me. Because she and I shared a birthday 2 days apart from one another. Probably one of my best memories of my mother. She was a great person, and I know had wonderful intentions, but she had decorated my cake with vitamin pills, which were starting to leach out onto the cake. I asked why, and she was honest and said she had put vitamins on the cake to keep me healthy. I always had suffered from an iron deficiency, so I could kind of get it. I didn't eat it. She would also at times go and buy lunches for us kids when we were young and in grade school and buy us grinders and soda and goodies that we probably shouldn't have had while we were at that age. But she just would do her thing. She would go shopping and spend money on things that we didn't need and couldn't afford. She tried, and that I loved her for. One day, she bought fake fur coats and little Polly Pocket type toys for April and I, and Dad made her take them back. That was a real big bummer. When I was just 14, my mom allowed me to drive her Pinto to wherever. And unknown to both her and I, there was a parking light out on the car. We got pulled over by the police. I was a bit scared, but when asked, was truthful and told the officer that I didn't have a permit or a license, at which time Mom was handed a ticket and I was removed from the driver's seat and put into the passenger seat. It was kind of fun. Always the rebel, my mom. No one could tell her what to do. Somewhere in the middle of all this, Mom ended up pregnant with my brother Matthew. He was a beautiful baby. Mom tried to be his mom, but it was a complete struggle. She just was not mom material. He went into foster care for a couple of years while Mom suffered through mental illness. When he was 5, Mom and I would move in together and he would move back with us. And what was sad is that every single night he would cry to go to sleep, and that was heartbreaking. Mom was highly medicated for most of the time, and that was hard to see. She was like a machine going through the paces. He would be with my mom for 2 years, and then she would relinquish custody to my father and stepmother. Mom was always welcome to come see him, share holidays, events with us, which was good, but it wasn't what was normal. He loved Mom, as we all did, very much. I was married on August 16th, 1986, to my high school sweetheart, Stephen. We're still married. My mom was stunning in her dress that she bought to wear. It was one of the times in my life that I thought my mom was just Mom. I believe God had a place in that. She wrote me a letter that was truly beautiful. I could not have had a better wedding present. She had tears in her eyes while walking down the aisle. It would be a few years later, but not many, that Mom would have a permanent spot in our lives. She lived very close by, and I made it my mission to have my mom be close to my family for at least the next 13 to 14 years. She was a mess at times. There would be times that my older 2 kids would go, I'm not going out into the kitchen because Mom's out there talking to somebody. And there was nobody in the kitchen except Mom. And they'd share these little things with me, and it would bother me, but I didn't know how else to make it work. I just wanted Mom to be around. She would sit out in the garden with me when the kids were playing out back. She would help watch the children at different times and help me with homeschooling. My mom did a lot of things. She tried to be involved in so many ways. Unfortunately, Mom would lose her beautiful teeth and put on a lot of weight. But she was still my mom. People always told me about her beautiful smile. She would be present and not always easy to deal with, but present. She had a very close relationship with my son, Ethan. I don't know why, but I'm really thankful. But it always bothered me because of my other 2 children. But somehow they understood. But it helped her to connect to someone. He would be the one who would always do a pinky swear with her to get her to promise that she would stop smoking. Unfortunately, she never did. Mom and Ethan would take pictures and do things that were just funny, like wear these matching glasses and just love one another. I hoped that this was a time of remembrance of a life that she was not able to fully embrace while Matt was young. I realized during those years that I became her caregiver instead of the other way around, and it took its toll, but I chose it. No one chose it for me. I thought if I loved my mom enough, she would come back to me in a way that some would consider normal. I ask myself now, what is normal? I don't know. Do any of us? Mom lived a very hard life in so many ways. She took shots, she was a diabetic, she was on a boatload of medications and always sleepy. That was frustrating. It wasn't until she was diagnosed with cancer in her intestines that things took on an entirely different meaning. The doctor came into her room one night and just told her, "You're gonna die." Those words, I don't know if I can ever, it was really hard to just hear those words. You know you're going to hear them at some point in your life, but that was hard. But we moved forward, knowing that if Mom had had surgery, she probably would have died. I remember telling my aunt that I did not want to see Mom go through any more pain, in her mind or in her body. She had spent enough time suffering. Somehow, in parts of me, that feels really selfish for me to say, she's had enough. Because sometimes I didn't think she even cared. You know, it just was the way she lived. We then decided to put Mom in hospice care. She went in sometime in December. We would go to see Mom daily as the cancer grew and the morphine grew alongside of it. She wanted to go shopping and get a dress for her casket. Such a bizarre conversation. And just do normal type things that would never happen. She was in hospice care for close to 4 months. During that time, it gave all of us children time for closure and a time to heal our hurts. Matt would come, let's see if I can turn a page, and spend a couple of days with her with his dog Daisy, which they allowed, which I thought was wonderful. And I was so thankful that he did that for himself and for her. My brother came back from Utah to spend some time with my mom, and the rest of us would come and go to visit her as she moved away from us day by day. She would rally a couple of times, but then she would go into this sleep state. The day she left us, April had told me that she did not want to be there when Mom stopped breathing, and God knew it. I believe that with everything in me. April and her husband have been suffering with different forms of cancer. And her husband had a panic attack, and April had to leave the hospice facility. Mom chose this time to leave us. I thanked my mom for being Mom and for giving birth to me so that I could then have my 3 beautiful children. I told her it was okay to leave and that it was time. I knew I didn't want this life for her anymore, and she took her last breath. It was the most precious experience for me. As much as it hurt all the years before that, I was the one that was with my mom. And it felt like this huge blessing, because just prior to that, somebody had spoken with her and asked her if she wanted to receive Christ. And she accepted. And it finally would leave my heart with a little peace in it, because everything else it was hard. So in the end, my mom was a dynamo in sickness and health. She never let caregivers tell her what she was gonna do. She told them, not always to her benefit, I might add. She loved deeply. You could see that in pictures with her and my dad. I thank my mom, and I thank God for carrying her and I through this journey called life. And I thank her so much for not giving up, even when I thought she was so bad and it was so scary to see her and hear her. She was a fighter, and I hope that many would say that I am a fighter as well. I know my kids loved her, and that was huge for me. They knew her as Grammy Izzy, and I knew her as Mom. Thank you, Mom, for giving me what you could. It was not perfect, and at times hurt a lot. But in the end, I knew you loved me deeply. I love you so much. Mom and God gave me the best gift, and that is my kids, and now their kids. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day.
You guys may be seated. You can go back down if you want. Let's hear it for these guys, right? So powerful. Thank God, like I said, for moms who know how to unconditionally love, and for kids that know how to unconditionally love. That was really powerful. Thank you, Aaron. I really, really appreciate that. So I got to somehow wrap this all up, right? I just want to say, first of all, to those of you that are online watching, we thank you. Happy Mother's Day to you, and we hope you have a great day. Hopefully you're with friends and family today, and have a great day.